Just because I was drunk at my engagement party, my girlfriend, with whom I had been in a relationship for 12 years, kicked me out of the car after she slapped me. After dragging my tired body back to our wedding room, I found my girlfriend in there, holding her long-lost lover tightly. "I regret it. I'll call off the wedding if you come back to me," she was pleading with Matthew. After witnessing her passion for Matthew, I regretted my decision too. In order to avoid her calling off the wedding, I fled. On our wedding day, no one expected Liza's frantic search for me in our marital home. I saw them embracing. I kicked off the shoes she gave me as an engagement gift. Though I loved them, they were a size too small. Blooding my feet, I called my uncle abroad. "Uncle, I'm not getting married. I want to come to you." Uncle paused for a while, then said, "That's good. Our family business was going to be yours anyway. It's good that you come soon and adapt early." I couldn't suppress my tears while he added, "Eden, don't cry. You're young. Don't let marriage and kids hold you back. You have a future. Think clearly. I'm waiting for you." Until tonight, I thought Liza was different. She was a successful, elegant woman. She remained kind and reserved. No scandals marred her reputation. But at our engagement party, she saw Matthew Cooper for the first time, and she lost control. Shattering a glass for the first time, she lashed out at me and abandoned me. If I had seen her with anyone else, I'd assume it was a misunderstanding. I'd give her another chance, spend another decade devoted to her. But the man in our home was Matthew Cooper, the one who tormented me for 20 years, the one who took everything from me, the one I could never forgive. When Liza brought Matthew home, I gave up on her but opened our home surveillance. Matthew wore my pajamas in our bed. Liza, who never did chores, cooked wake-up soup for him. "You are actually marrying a stand-in?" Matthew asked. Liza remained silent, only massaging his feet. "You did all this to provoke me, didn't you?" Matthew accused. "This room, the ring, the cake. Everything's my style." He added before continuing, "You love me, not him." Liza stayed silent, then kissed Matthew passionately. Tears streamed down my face while watching this. In 12 years, Liza never kissed me passionately. I thought she was shy, but she was only reserving her love for Matthew. As I left, Liza appeared, calling my name. "Eden." Liza instinctively released Matthew's hand as I turned around. "Matthew's drunk. I brought him here since I was worried about him walking alone," she explained. Matthew, a decent man, insisted on leaving to avoid misunderstandings. Liza, usually reserved, spoke lavishly about Matthew while defending him. I felt a strange sense of detachment from the woman before me. I was her childhood sweetheart, her business partner. Why had I become a substitute? I suppressed my pain before speaking. "He's not my brother. He is the son of our family's mistress." Liza's expression darkened as she yelled angrily. "Eden Cooper, apologize to Matthew for your vicious words. You're despicable. No wonder your parents abandoned you. Your bitter nature makes me disgusted. No wonder nobody loves you." Liza shielded Matthew, her face tensed in the moonlight. This gesture reminded me of our childhood, when my mother's infidelity tore our family apart, and Liza would rush to my side saying, "Eden, you're the best person. Even if everyone abandons you, I'll love you forever." I held on to those words, striving to build a happy family with Liza. But when I mentioned this, she'd dismiss it with a frown. Now, with Matthew here, she didn't even say childish nonsense anymore. Instead, she pierced my heart with words like, "You deserve to be unloved." I looked away as tears formed in my eyes. Liza's eyes trembled slightly, noticing my bleeding feet. "Tonight, I'll consider you drunk in the future." "There won't be a future," I said flatly, cutting her off. Liza's confusion was interrupted by Matthew's tearful departure. She rushed after him, dropping her raindrop pendant. I picked it up, recalling the small raindrop tattoo on Liza's left chest. All ignored details were now connected. Our 12-year love was just my one-sided devotion. Now I shouldn't cling to an unworthy woman. As I returned home, Uncle's message arrived. He'd booked my flight abroad on our wedding day. The wedding countdown now ticked down my departure. I smiled bitterly, discarding our marital decorations and joint belongings. Fate had its own plan. I would now spend these last 2 weeks bidding farewell to my past. Liza's phone call woke me up at dawn. Eden, are you awake? I ordered your favorite soup buns. Won't come home today. There's an emergency at work. Let's reschedule the wedding photo shoot. Apologize to Matthew for last night? Okay. Liza seemed taken aback by my quick agreement. Weddings are just for show. We're happy. No need to prove it. Let's keep it simple, okay? Simple. No marriage certificate, no wedding photos, no ceremony, no groom. After hanging up, I crossed out the wedding photo shoot on my calendar. Liza was always busy. I listed my desires, hoping to fulfill them during our marriage, but one by one, they were covered in thick marker strokes. There were many unspoken regrets, but now I focused on myself, not Liza. After resigning, I said goodbye to colleagues and friends. Actually, we all guessed, a friend admitted. Liza's been with Matthew this whole time. Everyone thought the person in her post was you, but we recognized Matthew immediately. Liza, who never posted my pictures, now filled her feed with Matthews. They went to amusement parks, tried wedding attire, and watched sunrises together. Her love for Matthew was open, but she blocked me. Friends were worried about me, saying, Eden, don't be too heartbroken. Matthew has no comparison with you. If Liza knew his true nature, she'd regret it. I'm over it, I replied indifferently. I gazed at the bustling streets. In a few days, I'd leave forever. No time or energy to lament Liza. When Liza returned, I remained unmoved. Why's the house empty? Didn't you decorate? She asked. As you said simple, I replied bluntly. Liza fell silent, noticing the countdown. Time flies. Our wedding's in 10 days, she said. I tore off 2 pages saying, ours is in 8 days. Those pages held wishes like riding the Ferris wheel and watching the sunrise and sunset. Liza never noticed anything about me. Suddenly, Uncle called, and I stepped outside. Upon returning, Liza said, don't plan a honeymoon. I'm too busy. I know, I replied. Since Matthew's return, Liza clung to him. I handed her the raindrop pendant. Her eyes sparkled. I've been looking for it everywhere. I saw your high reward lost item post online, I replied. $1 million for an old pendant. Our wedding budget was only $200,000. Liza, where's your engagement ring? She hesitated. As I packed my bags, the reality hit me. 12 years of my life wasted. Every memory I thought was precious. Every effort. Every sleepless night planning a future with Liza. It all felt like a cruel joke. The pain in my chest was unbearable, but for the first time, I chose not to surrender to it. I was leaving, but not as a defeated man. If she thought she could use me as a backup plan, she was gravely mistaken. After finalizing my flight with my uncle and double-checking the last details, the doorbell rang. I knew it was Liza. I opened the door and stared at her silently. She looked exhausted, as if her frantic search for me had drained her completely. She stepped inside without being invited and started talking as if nothing had happened. Eden, we need to talk. We can't let something like this ruin everything, right? We can fix this. I crossed my arms and stayed quiet, watching her nervously pace the room. She was trying to act like she still had some hold over me, like I was still hers to command. But I could hear the uncertainty in her voice. And I knew why. Matthew wasn't reliable. He never was, and he never would be. Liza was terrified of losing both of us, but I wasn't going to play along anymore. Eden, please stop being childish. We love each other. A relationship as long as ours can't end over one mistake. I let out a bitter laugh, one full of everything I had bottled up for years. She looked startled. She wasn't used to seeing me like this. Now you want to talk about love? I said, my voice steadier than I expected. Where was that love when you brought Matthew into our room? When you dressed him in my clothes and served him food in my house? When you posted pictures with him and erased every trace of us? Her face went pale. Eden, it wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. I cut her off. You think I didn't see? You think I'm an idiot? She started crying, but this time I felt nothing. For years, every one of her tears was like a knife to my heart. I would do anything to make her smile again. But now, Liza's tears had no effect on me. I made a mistake, okay? She whispered. Matthew, He just confused me. But it's you I love. It's always been you. I shook my head, disgusted. No, Liza. It wasn't love. You used me because you knew I'd always be there. But not anymore. She tried to get closer, but I stepped back. Enough. I'm done being your fool. I'm not playing your games anymore. If you want Matthew so badly, go to him. For a moment, she stood there, stunned by my words. Her eyes, swollen from crying, flickered between remorse and panic. And then, in one final pathetic move, she dropped to her knees. Eden, please, don't do this to me. I need you. I can't imagine my life without you. I took a deep breath, feeling a strange sense of calm. For the first time, I was in control. Liza, who was so used to me chasing after her, was now the one begging. But I wasn't going to give in. Not this time. You already made your choice, I said, my voice unwavering. And I've made mine. She sobbed, but I remained firm. Tomorrow, I'll be on a plane, leaving all of this behind. And you? Stay with Matthew. I hope he makes you happy, because I'll find my happiness far away from here. She slowly stood up, her eyes red and her spirit broken. She said nothing more. She just turned and left, leaving behind the raindrop pendant I had given back to her. The moment the door closed, a wave of relief washed over me. I grabbed my phone and texted my uncle. I'll be there tomorrow. I can't wait to start fresh. That night, for the first time in years, I slept in peace. No more shadows of Liza and her manipulation. No more burden of an unreciprocated love. The next day, just before I headed to the airport, a friend texted me. Liza is a mess. She canceled the wedding and told everyone you're the love of her life. I chuckled softly. For the first time, I felt nothing but indifference. I had left that life behind along with all the broken promises and regrets. My future was just beginning, and there was no looking back. As the plane took off, I gazed out the window, watching the city grow smaller and smaller. I smiled. For the first time in years, I was free. The moment I stepped out of my old life, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Control. I was no longer Liza's puppet. With every mile that took me farther away, a cold clarity settled in. Leaving without getting back at them wouldn't be enough. They couldn't walk away from this unscathed. Liza and Matthew had to taste the bitterness of what they'd done. I wanted them to beg for something they'd never have again. My patience, my love, and my trust. Once I settled into the new apartment my uncle arranged abroad, I began planning my revenge. It had to be careful, precise. It couldn't be impulsive or obvious. They would pay slowly, savoring every drop of the poison I would drip into their lives. First, I went silent. I cut off contact with everyone we had in common, leaving them to wonder if I was heartbroken, plotting something, or simply gone for good. I deleted my social media accounts, erasing any trace of where I had gone. I wanted the uncertainty to gnaw at them, haunting their nights like an invisible curse. For weeks, I monitored them from afar. Friends, thinking they were helping, kept me informed. Liza and Matthew had moved in together, settling into the home that was once mine. They seemed happy, on the surface. But happiness built on lies is fragile. All it needed was a push to crumble, and I intended to be that push. The moment I had gathered enough information, I reached out to someone who knew exactly where to strike. Camila, Matthew's ex-girlfriend. She had her own reasons to hate him, and when I told her I wanted to bring him down, she eagerly agreed to help. Together, we built our plan. Camila provided incriminating messages between Matthew and several women, proving he was unfaithful. I wasn't surprised. I just needed proof to shatter whatever trust existed between him and Liza. Using those messages, I created a fake account of one of Matthew's supposed lovers, a perfect bait. On an ordinary day, we launched the first strike. We sent the damning conversations directly to Liza, accompanied by photos and doctored audio clips where Matthew confessed to using Liza for money and to destroy what was left of my life. Within an hour, everything began to fall apart. Liza's messages flooded my phone, filled with desperation and anger. She begged for answers, demanding to know if I had known all along. I ignored every single message. I wanted her to feel the void I felt. Alone, betrayed, and desperate for the truth, only to find silence. Their relationship unraveled quickly. Liza became paranoid, watching Matthew's every move. In response, he showed his true nature, indifferent and volatile. Their arguments escalated. He had never cared enough to fight for her, and now, under pressure, he was ready to leave her behind. My poison had worked beautifully. I planted the seed of doubt, and they watered it until it strangled whatever love they thought they had. With their bond shattered, I flew back to Brazil for the final act. I waited until Liza, broken and defeated, left the house she once shared with Matthew, carrying her belongings in bags. Matthew had discarded her, just like he discarded everyone else. The timing was perfect. I entered the house quietly, finding Matthew drunk and alone, unaware of my presence until I stood in front of him. "Eden, what the hell are you doing here?" He slurred, trying to sound intimidating, but failing miserably. "I'm here to take back what's mine," I said, glancing around the house that once held so many memories. Matthew chuckled, stumbling on his feet. "This place isn't yours anymore, loser." I smiled, pulling a document from my pocket. The sale contract I'd prepared months ago. "Actually, it is. The deed's still under my name. And I sold the house yesterday." His smirk vanished, replaced by disbelief. He hadn't realized he'd been living in a house that was still legally mine. Now he was being thrown out. "Pack your things, Matthew," I said coldly, "or I'll call the police." He cursed, yelled, and threw things around, but he had no choice. I watched as he stuffed his belongings into plastic bags and stumbled out of the door, humiliated. I locked the door behind him for the last time, listening to the satisfying click of the key turning in the lock. The revenge was sweet, but the closure was even better. I left that house, and all the pain and broken dreams inside it, behind for good. Back abroad, with the money from the sale and the family business now in my hands, I was free to start fresh, unburdened by the past. Liza tried to contact me several times after that. Her messages were pathetic attempts to rekindle something that no longer existed. She said she missed me, that she now realized I was the man she should have chosen. But I ignored every message. She had her chance, and she threw it away. Matthew lost the comfort and security he never deserved. Liza was left with nothing but regret, haunted by the knowledge that she had destroyed the only real relationship she ever had. And me? I found peace. There's no better revenge than moving on without looking back. Today, my life is peaceful, as if a massive weight has finally been lifted from my shoulders. I wake up every morning without the shadow of Liza or Matthew looming over me. At first, I thought the emptiness would be unbearable, that their absence would leave scars. But what I feel now is liberation. Selling the house and starting fresh with the family business was only the beginning. The company is growing faster than I ever imagined. I work closely with my uncle, learning every detail, and we've recently expanded into international markets. The sense of building something entirely my own, free from interference, is priceless. With the profits from the house and the success of the business, I bought my own apartment. Not a mansion filled with bitter memories, but a modern, cozy place just the way I wanted. I wake up to the sound of the ocean, enjoy my morning coffee on the balcony, and for the first time, I plan my future without considering anyone else's expectations. I've traveled to places I always dreamed of, but never had the chance to visit. Along the way, I rediscovered old hobbies and allowed myself to find joy in the little things. I met new people too, people who see me for who I am, without expectations or emotional games. I'm not ready for a serious relationship yet, and honestly, I'm in no hurry. For the first time, I feel comfortable being on my own. I've learned that my happiness depends solely on me. As for Liza and Matthew, news of them eventually reached me. I wasn't actively seeking it, but it's hard to avoid when mutual friends feel the need to update you. Liza tried to rebuild her life, but it wasn't easy. After Matthew left her, she struggled to find stability. Her pride was wounded beyond repair. She lost her job when her workplace discovered her involvement with Matthew. Apparently, His lack of boundaries extended to professional settings too. With no job and no support from him, she ended up moving back in with her parents, something she had sworn she'd never do. Matthew, on the other hand, hasn't changed. He continues hopping from one woman to another, taking whatever he can until there's nothing left. I heard he's deep in debt and constantly getting into fights. A traveler I met along the way mentioned seeing him begging for favors from old acquaintances just to get by. It didn't surprise me. People like him never change. They live in a cycle of destruction and survival, dragging everyone around them into the same pit. Liza tried to reach out to me a few more times, sending long messages as if trying to justify everything that happened. The last message I received was a mix of apology and regret. She said she finally understood how much I had loved her and was sorry for not seeing it sooner. She wrote about sleepless nights spent thinking about what could have been, but I didn't respond. Some doors, once closed, are better left that way. My peace is worth more than any conversation we could have. I chose to move forward without anger, but also without room for her in my life. Every choice has its consequences, and both Liza and Matthew are now facing theirs. Meanwhile, I'm enjoying the present and building my future, free from regrets. Revenge was never the ultimate goal. It was merely the catalyst for my freedom. What truly matters now is that I've found peace, and the freedom to be myself without fear or restraints is the greatest victory I could have ever achieved.